The Last Goodbye. The chilling betrayal of Skylar Neese. Picture this. It's a warm July night in 2012. 16-year-old Skylar Neese, an only child, is feeling restless, maybe a little lonely. She's just gotten home from her shift at Wendy's, and her mom tries to cheer her up, suggesting she dive into a Twilight book. Skylar, ever the loving daughter, embraces. Her mom tells her, "I love you." Then she leans over, kisses her dad's head, and whispers, "I love you, Dad." These aren't just tender goodbyes. They were the last words her parents would ever hear from their bright, vivacious daughter. Just hours later, Skylar, still longing for connection, tweets her frustration. "Sick of being effing home, thanks friends. Love hanging out with y'all too." She then sneaks out of her window, not for a typical teenage adventure, but into a night that would rewrite their lives forever. What happened in the moments after those heartfelt goodbyes would shatter a family and expose a darkness no one saw coming, perpetrated by the very people Skylar trusted most, the girls who had been planning her murder for nearly a year. Because of a secret, because of a selfie. This isn't just a story of a missing girl. It's a chilling descent into the ultimate betrayal, where friendship became a weapon and love turned to cold-blooded murder. Who was Skylar? The characters of a tragedy. At the heart of this harrowing story is Skylar Annette Neese, a bright, vivacious 16-year-old from Star City, West Virginia. An only child, Skylar was the apple of her parents' eye. Known for her sharp intellect and compassionate spirit, she was an honor student with big dreams, hoping one day to become a criminal lawyer. A cruel irony, given the path her life would tragically take. Skylar was vibrant, a little stubborn, and utterly adored by her parents Dave and Mary Neese. Then there were her closest friends, the girls who would ultimately become her undoing. Sheila Eddy had been Skylar's best friend since they were in second grade. Their bond was so deep that Skylar's parents, Mary and Dave Neese, often considered Sheila like a second daughter. But beneath that veneer of friendship, Sheila was known to be impulsive, wild, and rebellious. A firecracker who some believed was a negative influence on the more grounded Skylar. Rachel Schoaf entered their lives in middle school, completing the trio. Rachel was a spunky redhead with a passion for dance acting and drama. She hailed from a wealthy, deeply religious, and somewhat sheltered family, a background that would play a significant, if twisted, role in the events to come. Skylar's parents, Mary Neese and Dave Neese, were her anchors. Mary, an administrative assistant, would be the recipient of Sheila's initial deceptive phone call. After Skylar vanished, Dave, a Walmart product assembler, was a devoted father who would find himself plunged into an unimaginable nightmare, fueled by grief and a desperate need for justice. The investigation would involve a dedicated team, including local Star City Police, the West Virginia State Police, and federal agents from the FBI. They would embark on a painstaking search for answers, navigating a web of lies woven by those closest to the truth. A friendship, forged, then fractured. The Road to Betrayal, 2004, mid-2012. The story of Skylar's demise isn't a sudden explosion of violence. It's a slow, agonizing unraveling, meticulously planned over months, if not longer. It begins innocuously enough. In 2004, Skylar Neese, and Sheila Eddy, just little girls in second grade, met at a community church. They quickly became inseparable, a bond so tight they were practically sisters. Their days were filled with sleepovers, shared secrets, and the kind of innocent joy only childhood best friends truly know. This idyllic friendship expanded in 2010 when they entered middle school and met Rachel Schoaf. The three girls quickly formed a tight-knit trio. They were almost always together, their laughter echoing through Skylar's home, which became their frequent gathering spot. On the surface, they were just three ordinary teenagers navigating the choppy waters of adolescence, dreaming of futures that seemed boundless. But beneath that seemingly solid exterior, cracks began to form in mid-2011. The dynamics between Sheila and Rachel started to shift, becoming increasingly exclusive and disturbingly intimate. Skylar, still loyal and eager to be part of their world, began to feel the sting of exclusion, watching as her two best friends grew closer, sharing whispered jokes and knowing glances that left her painfully on the outside. Sheila and Rachel deliberately left Skylar out of activities, a cruel game that intensified over time. They would even wear matching outfits, a subtle but deeply hurtful gesture designed to make Skylar feel like an outsider, a third wheel in her own friendship. It was a calculated form of psychological torment, slowly eroding Skylar's sense of belonging and leaving her confused and hurt. By late 2011 and early 2012, Skylar's private journal became her confidant, a safe space for her. Mounting discomfort and confusion, in its pages she documented her growing unease, writing candidly about how Sheila and Rachel were more than friends and had tried everything two girls can try together. The entries painted a vivid, unsettling picture of a secret, intimate, even sexual relationship developing between the two. Skylar's journal detailed how Sheila and Rachel would engage in physically affectionate and romantic behavior right in front of her, making her profoundly uncomfortable. There was even a harrowing incident where allegedly they locked Skylar in a bathroom while they engaged in sexual acts, a chilling act of psychological cruelty designed to assert their dominance and secrecy, forcing Skylar to confront a reality that felt both invasive and threatening. Then came the pivotal moment, a detail investigators would later come to believe was the true catalyst for the horrors to come. Skylar took a selfie, a seemingly innocuous teenage act, but in the background, out of focus, yet unmistakably clear, was Sheila and Rachel kissing. When the two girls discovered this photograph, they were, in the words of police, incensed. Rachel's family was deeply religious and held conservative views. The revelation of such a secret, particularly concerning a same-sex relationship, would have been catastrophic for her, potentially shattering her life reputation and standing within her devout community. Police theorized that this single image, a candid snapshot of a hidden life, became the trigger that transformed their desire to simply cut Skylar out of their lives into a cold-blooded plan to silence her permanently. It was a secret they were willing to kill for. The chilling premonitions, however, had begun even earlier, long before any photograph emerged. Between October 2011 and early 2012, Sheila and Rachel were overheard by classmates discussing macabre topics, specifically how one might go about disposing of a body. These were not innocent, morbid fascinations. They were chillingly specific. In one particularly disturbing instance, Rachel was heard stating, with a disturbing lack of emotion, that she wouldn't even care if Skylar died. These weren't idle musings. Between teenagers, they were terrifying, deliberate foreshadows of a dark future, indicating a growing malevolence that festered in their shared secret. What emerged from the investigation was truly terrifying. Shelia and Rachel had been meticulously planning Skylar's murder for an astonishing period, approximately 9 months, though some sources suggest it was months or nearly a year. This wasn't a crime of passion, a momentary outburst of rage. This was a methodical, calculated conspiracy, nurtured and refined over hundreds of days. It was a chilling testament to their cold intent. Shelia, the apparent ringleader, delved into online research, looking up not just how to kill someone, but even more grotesquely, how to dispose of a body without a trace. Her search history included queries as disturbing as how to feed human flesh to pigs. The sheer depravity of this research months before the act reveals a deeply disturbing level of premeditation and a complete dehumanization of their target. And in a truly perverse twist, the two girls even had the audacity to ask Skylar herself how she would prefer to die, a question that in hindsight sends agonizing shivers down the spine. Skylar, completely oblivious to their true, sinister intentions, must have dismissed it as a morbid, albeit unsettling joke. Between friends, a dark humor that masked a horrific reality. The sheer audacity of their planning, the casual discussions about ending a life, illustrates a profound psychological detachment. The fateful night, friendship's betrayal, July 5th to 6th, 2012. The evening of July 5th, 2012, began with a familiar teenage frustration that would soon turn into unimaginable horror. Skylar, after finishing her shift at Wendy's, was feeling restless and isolated, yearning for connection. She took to Twitter, her final public message reading, "Sick of being effing home, thanks friends. Love hanging out with y'all too." This raw, poignant expression of loneliness, a desperate plea for inclusion, would tragically lead her to her death, drawn by the very people she missed. Around 10 p.m., Skylar returned home to her parents' apartment. The scene that followed would be etched forever in her parents' minds, a tender memory forever tainted by the grim reality. She embraced her mother, Mary, telling her, "I love you, Mom." Then, with a tender gesture filled with innocent affection, she leaned over and kissed her father Dave on the head, whispering, "I love you, Dad." These were not just routine goodbyes. They were the last heartfelt words her parents would ever hear from their daughter, a poignant contrast to the brutality that lay just hours ahead. Just before 12:30 a.m. on July 6, 2012, Skylar's phone buzzed with a series of texts or calls from Shelia and Rachel inviting her to sneak out. Skylar, initially hesitant, perhaps sensing a lingering discomfort in their friendship or a quiet apprehension about the late hour, eventually agreed. The lure of social connection, of finally being included in their plans, was too strong to resist, overshadowing any fleeting doubts. At precisely 12:30 a.m., Skylar quietly slipped out of her bedroom window, using a stool to reach the ground below. It was a typical teenage rebellion, a clandestine rendezvous with friends. She then walked across the street to the parking lot of her apartment complex, and with a lightness in her step that belied the horror awaiting her, climbed into Sheila Eddy's car. The image, captured by a grainy surveillance camera, showed Skylar willingly getting into the vehicle, a detail that would initially mislead investigators, painting a picture of a runaway, not a victim. She was skipping happily, completely oblivious to the sinister kill kit hidden in the trunk or the heinous plan her supposed best friends had concocted. She was simply excited to be with her friends, thinking she was embarking on a typical late-night adventure, unaware that she was driving to her death. As Sheila sped away, carrying the three girls into the dark West Virginia night, a chilling kit lay hidden in the trunk of Sheila's car. It contained 2 kitchen knives, rolls of paper towels, bleach, and a shovel. Tools not for a casual hangout, but for a heinous act and its subsequent cover-up. This was no impromptu decision. It was a cold, meticulously planned operation, honed over months. The 3 girls drove for about 45 minutes, venturing into the desolate, unfamiliar terrain of a secluded, familiar wooded area in Blacksville, West Virginia, near the Pennsylvania border. This was a place they had frequented before, a spot for smoking marijuana and casual hangouts. The familiarity of the location made the coming betrayal all the more chilling. The night air was thick with the sounds of the forest, a quiet setting that would soon bear witness to unspeakable horror. There, deep in the isolated woods, they stopped. Once there, the facade of friendship dropped entirely, revealing the monstrous intent beneath. Sheila and Rachel, executing their rehearsed plan, pretended to have forgotten a lighter and asked Skylar to go back to the car to retrieve it. As Skylar innocently turned her back, walking towards the vehicle, Sheila and Rachel exchanged a silent, terrifying glance. Then, in a prearranged signal that would forever haunt the survivors, they counted 1, 2, 3. In that terrifying instant, a moment of synchronized malevolence, they launched their attack, brutally stabbing Skylar with the kitchen knives they had brought. The attack was swift and merciless, yet Skylar, in a desperate primal fight for her life, struggled valiantly against her attackers. She managed to grab one of the knives, injuring Rachel's knee in the process, a small but significant detail that would later emerge as crucial evidence. Through the shock, the agonizing pain, and utter disbelief, Skylar cried out a single heartbreaking question. Why? It was a plea for understanding from the girls, who had once been her world, her closest confidants. But there was no answer, no mercy, only the relentless fury of their assault. They continued to stab her over 50 times until her desperate gurgling stopped, until the chilling silence of death confirmed she was gone. The raw brutality of the attack, the sheer number of wounds, speaks to an overwhelming, perhaps even frenzied intent to ensure Skylar's absolute demise. With Skylar's life extinguished, her body lying lifeless in the dark woods, the killers turned to their grim task of disposal. They tried to bury her, but the ground was too hard, too rocky, a stubborn impediment to their heinous plans. Frustrated but undeterred, they dragged Skylar's body to a nearby tree, covering her with a crude, makeshift grave of rocks, branches, and leaves, a pitiful attempt to conceal their unspeakable crime. They then discarded their blood-soaked clothes and the murder weapons into the dense foliage. In a baffling twist, however, they left Skylar's turned-off cell phone near her body, an oversight that would later prove to be a crucial, albeit delayed, piece of the puzzle, and a profound question mark in their carefully orchestrated deception. Shalia and Rachel then drove back home, their car now cleansed of blood, their minds seemingly cleansed of guilt. They went to bed, acting as if nothing out of the ordinary had happened, returning to their lives with a chilling normalcy. The stark contrast between the brutality they had just inflicted and their calm return to routine was a terrifying testament to their profound psychological detachment. The Disappearance and a Misguided Investigation, July 2012, January 2013. The morning of July 6, 2012, brought the first wave of alarm to the Neese household, a day that would unfold into an agonizing search. Around noon, Dave Neese returned home from his shift and immediately noticed something was terribly wrong. Skylar's bedroom door, usually left ajar, was locked from the inside, and her window wasn't open. It was clear she had snuck out, but she hadn't returned. A cold knot of dread began to form in his stomach, a premonition of unimaginable grief. That afternoon, the anxiety escalated exponentially. When Wendy's called to report Skylar hadn't shown up for her shift, Mary Neese knew instantly that this wasn't like her daughter. Skylar was responsible, reliable. Something was profoundly wrong. The Neese family, now consumed by fear and a rapidly growing sense of panic, immediately called the local Star City police to report Skylar missing. Almost immediately, the deceptive games of Sheila Eddy began adding layers of confusion and false hope to the unfolding nightmare. Sheila called Mary Neese back, feigning concern and sorrow, her voice dripping with the calculated empathy of a grieving best friend. She admitted that she and Rachel had picked Skylar up the night before, but then spun a carefully constructed lie. She claimed they had dropped Skylar off at the end of her road around 11 p.m. hours before the actual murder, so Skylar could sneak back into her house undetected. This lie, designed to throw investigators off their trail and create a plausible narrative for Skylar's runaway status, would become a critical barrier to finding Skylar and understanding the truth. When police reviewed grainy surveillance camera footage from Skylar's apartment complex, it showed Skylar willingly getting into an unidentified vehicle at 12:30 a.m. This visual confirmation of her voluntary departure, coupled with Sheila's fabricated story, led authorities to make a critical, heartbreaking error. Skylar was initially classified as a runaway. This devastating misstep had profound consequences. A crucial Amber Alert, a public warning system designed to rapidly disseminate information about abducted children, was never issued for Skylar despite her parents' desperate pleas. The prevailing theory, reiterated by authorities to her distraught parents, was that Skylar had simply run away with someone and would return in a few days. "Don't worry," they were told. This terrible advice, born of a misjudgment, would severely hinder the initial investigation, allowing the killers to operate in the shadows, their monstrous secret safe for now. The early days of the investigation were marked by growing frustration for the Neese family and a dismissive tone from some law enforcement officials, while some officers genuinely pursued, leads the underlying belief that Skylar was just a rebellious teenager who ran off meant a lack of the urgent resources typically allocated to suspected abduction cases. Dave and Mary Neese launched their own desperate search, plastering missing flyers with Skylar's bright smiling face across Star City and beyond. They spent countless hours walking through neighborhoods, knocking on doors, and calling anyone who might have seen her. Their despair was palpable, a raw wound on display for the community. Adding to their anguish was Sheila Eddy's relentless presence. She was a constant fixture at the Neese home, sitting with Mary offering comfort, joining search parties, and even helping to distribute those very flyers, all while knowing she was the architect of Skylar's disappearance. Her performance was a chilling display of manipulation, earning her the trust of Skylar's parents. Dave Neese, in his agony, would even call police asking them to leave Sheila alone. She's hurting too much, completely unaware that he was protecting his daughter's killer. This false comfort prolonged their suffering, building a tragic foundation of trust that would later shatter into unimaginable pain. Weeks bled into months. The initial flurry of activity faded, replaced by a suffocating silence. The police had no solid leads, no credible witnesses beyond Sheila and Rachel, whose stories, though vague, remained consistent with a runaway narrative. Skylar's parents continued their lonely vigil, their hopes dwindling with each passing day. The community, initially supportive, began to move on, though the mystery of where did Skylar go lingered like a dark cloud over Star City. For Dave and Mary, every day was a battle against despair, a constant struggle to keep Skylar's name alive and to push authorities to look beyond the runaway theory. The lack of an Amber Alert became a source of increasing bitterness and frustration for them. They felt their daughter had been abandoned by the very system designed to protect her. The case was stuck in an agonizing limbo, a chilling testament to the effectiveness of a meticulously crafted lie. The twisted web, unraveling the unexplained. Despite the confessions and convictions, the case of Skylar Neese leaves behind a chilling labyrinthine trail of unanswered questions, glaring inconsistencies, and psychological enigmas. These are the profound twists that continue to haunt investigators, survivors, and anyone who dares to delve into this horrifying story, tugging at the very fabric of what we think we know, and forcing us to confront the unsettling depths of human nature. The elusive why, a motive as chillingly vague as it is vile. At the heart of Skylar's brutal murder lies the most perplexing and arguably the most terrifying unanswered question. Why? When Rachel Schoaf and Sheila Eddy finally confessed their stated motive was chilling in its stark simplicity. We just didn't like her anymore, and we just wanted it to stop. This explanation, bald, dismissive, and utterly devoid of genuine emotion, is catastrophically insufficient. Imagine a meticulously planned, horrifically brutal murder, enacted by two girls against their lifelong best friend, all because they didn't like her. Surha, this flimsy rationale, fell woefully short for investigators and the public alike. It's too mundane, too shallow, too inhuman to justify the sheer barbarity and premeditation of their actions. Investigators, driven by an instinct that something far deeper lay beneath the surface, struggled immensely with this lack of a coherent motive. Their deep dive into Skylar's personal life unearthed a far more compelling and terrifying possibility: a secret, specifically the intimate romantic and sexual relationship that had developed between Rachel and Shelia. Skylar knew her private journal, a poignant repository of her thoughts, meticulously documented their illicit encounters and the profound discomfort they caused her. She recorded how the two girls would engage in intimate acts right in front of her, even allegedly locking her out of rooms while they were together. A chilling act of psychological cruelty. The perceived catalyst, the detail that investigators would later zero in on, was reportedly a selfie Skylar innocently took. In the background of that picture, unknowingly to Skylar at the time, Shelia and Rachel were allegedly caught in an intimate moment kissing. For Rachel, whose family was deeply religious and held conservative views, the exposure of such a relationship would have been catastrophic, potentially shattering her life reputation and standing within her devout community. Police theorized that this single image, a candid snapshot of a hidden life, became the trigger that transformed their desire to simply cut Skylar out of their lives into a cold-blooded plan to silence her permanently. It was a secret they were willing to kill for. The chilling premonitions, however, had begun even earlier, long before any photograph emerged. Between October 2011 and early 2012, Shelia and Rachel were overheard by classmates discussing macabre topics, specifically how one might go about disposing of a body. These were not innocent, morbid fascinations. They were chillingly specific. In one particularly disturbing instance, Rachel was heard stating, with a disturbing lack of emotion, that she wouldn't even care if Skylar died. These weren't idle musings. Between teenagers, they were terrifying, deliberate foreshadows of a dark future, indicating a growing malevolence that festered in their shared secret. What emerged from the investigation was truly terrifying. Shelia and Rachel had been meticulously planning Skylar's murder for an astonishing period, approximately 9 months, though some sources suggest it was months or nearly a year. This wasn't a crime of passion, a momentary outburst of rage. This was a methodical, calculated conspiracy, nurtured and refined over hundreds of days. It was a chilling testament to their cold intent. Shelia, the apparent ringleader, delved into online research, looking up not just how to kill someone, but even more grotesquely, how to dispose of a body without a trace. Her search history included queries as disturbing as how to feed human flesh to pigs. The sheer depravity of this research months before the act reveals a deeply disturbing level of premeditation and a complete dehumanization of their target. And in a truly perverse twist, the two girls even had the audacity to ask Skylar herself how she would prefer to die, a question that in hindsight sends agonizing shivers down the spine. Skylar, completely oblivious to their true sinister intentions, must have dismissed it as a morbid, albeit unsettling joke between friends, a dark humor that masked a horrific reality. The sheer audacity of their planning, the casual discussions about ending a life, illustrates a profound psychological detachment. Shelia Eddy's unsettling, calm, a mask of deceit. Perhaps one of the most disturbing and bewildering elements of this entire saga. is the utterly chilling composure and profound lack of remorse displayed by Sheila Eddy from the moment Skylar was reported missing. Sheila became an active participant in the search, projecting the image of a grieving best friend. She called Skylar's father, Dave, constantly offering comfort and support. She even went to the Neese home, sitting on Skylar's bed, weeping alongside Mary Neese, Skylar's distraught mother. In one particularly gut-wrenching moment, Sheila reportedly embraced Mary tearfully, asking, "How could she do this to us?" referring to Skylar supposedly running away. This was a masterclass in manipulation, a performance so convincing that Dave Neese himself called the police, urging them to leave Sheila alone. "She's hurting too much." But behind that mask of sorrow lay a chilling, unyielding facade that utterly baffled investigators. During repeated interrogations, Sheila maintained her composure, her eyes unblinking, her story unwavering. There was no fidgeting, no signs of distress that often betray a liar. Even after Rachel's confession ultimately cracked the case wide open, Sheila remained remarkably calm. In court, she was seen smiling, an image that sent cold shivers down the spines of many. This unshakable demeanor was a significant red flag for seasoned detectives, a stark contradiction to the emotional turmoil expected of someone grieving a missing friend, especially one they claimed to love. It was this chilling, pathological calmness that fueled theories among investigators and criminal psychologists that Sheila may exhibit traits of a sociopath or psychopath, individuals characterized by a profound lack of empathy, a disregard for social norms, and a disturbing tendency towards manipulative behavior. Her ability to compartmentalize, to deceive, and to project an image of profound grief, while knowing full well she was the killer, spoke to a deeply disturbed psychological profile that defies typical teenage behavior. How could someone so young possess such an unnerving capacity for sustained cruel deception? This question remains a haunting testament to the darkness that can lurk beneath a seemingly normal exterior, making it incredibly difficult for investigators to penetrate her lies. The unfathomable planning, months of malice, the revelation that Rachel and Sheila had meticulously planned Skylar's murder for an astonishing 9 months, or even longer as some sources suggest, months, or nearly a year, adds another layer of chilling complexity and profound mystery to this case. This was no spontaneous act of violence fueled by momentary rage. This was a calculated, deliberate plot, nurtured and refined over hundreds of days. The sheer psychological fortitude required to harbor such a murderous intent for almost a year is almost unfathomable. They weren't just vaguely thinking about it, they were actively preparing. Sheila, the alleged mastermind, delved into online research, looking up not just how to kill someone, but horrifyingly, how to dispose of a body without a trace. Her search history included queries as disturbing as how to feed human flesh to pigs. They discussed their plans, refined them, and even assembled a kill kit in Shelia's car containing kitchen knives, cleaning supplies, and a shovel. The meticulousness of this long-term planning, combined with the incredibly trivial motive they offered, creates a profound disconnect that baffled and frustrated investigators. Why would two teenagers invest so much time and effort into orchestrating such a horrific crime against a friend if the reason was as simple as we didn't like her anymore. This prolonged period of premeditation suggests a deeper, more insidious psychological dynamic at play. Perhaps a growing fixation, a shared delusion, or an escalating power struggle that went far beyond mere dislike. It implies a chillingly cold and rational component to their madness, a twisted dedication to their heinous goal that is difficult to comprehend. The duration of their plot raises fundamental questions about the nature of their evil and how such malevolence could gestate for so long within such young minds. The 1, 2, 3 signal, a macabre countdown. Before they launched their brutal attack on Skylar, Rachel, and Sheila counted 1, 2, 3. It was a synchronized signal, a chilling countdown to murder. This detail revealed in Rachel's confession is profoundly unsettling. It transforms the chaotic act of violence into something more controlled, more ritualistic, adding another layer of chilling premeditation to the already heinous crime. The macabre significance of this signal was further underscored by Sheila Eddy herself on April 1st, 2013, about a month before her arrest, and after Skylar's body had been found and identified. Sheila posted a cryptic and chilling tweet. "We really did go on 3. This wasn't just a casual remark. It was almost a taunt, a cold-blooded reference to the very moment they took Skylar's life, showing a disturbing lack of remorse and an unsettling pride in their calculated act. The 1, 2, 3 is a small detail, but it speaks volumes about the level of premeditation and the shared, twisted understanding between Sheila and Rachel. What was the psychological purpose of this countdown? Was it to steel their nerves, to formalize their pact, to create a shared point of no return? It suggests a disturbing level of coordination and a cold detachment from the humanity of their victim. This specific, almost ritualistic action leaves a lingering question about the dark bond that existed between the killers, a bond that manifested in this final terrifying signal, a chilling echo of their synchronized descent into evil. The abandoned phone, a perplexing oversight, or a deliberate act. After the brutal murder, Sheila and Rachel attempted to dispose of Skylar's body. They also discarded their bloodied clothes and the murder weapons. However, they made a puzzling decision that baffled investigators. They turned off Skylar's cell phone and left it lying near her body in the woods. This action is highly unusual for killers attempting to cover their tracks. Typically, evidence like a cell phone, which can be easily traced, would be destroyed, taken far away, or carefully disposed of to prevent it from leading investigators to the crime scene. Yet, Skylar's phone was found relatively close to her remains. This seemingly minor detail became a significant point of confusion and a potential misdirection for police. Why leave it behind? Was it a simple oversight born of panic and exhaustion after the brutal act? A mistake that ultimately helped investigators confirm the location once Rachel confessed? Or was there a more sinister, unstated reason? Could it have been a macabre trophy, a final cruel gesture of dominance over their victim, meant to signify their ultimate control? Some have speculated it was left to mislead, making it seem like Skylar ran away and lost her phone. However, no clear confirmed explanation has ever been provided by the perpetrators regarding this particular action. It remains a baffling detail, a loose thread in the tightly woven tapestry of their deception, leaving us to wonder about the precise intent behind this bizarre choice and how it might have influenced the initial stages of the investigation. These unresolved questions, the glaring inconsistencies, and the sheer psychological depths of this case continue to resonate. They force us to look beyond the basic facts of the crime and grapple with the unsettling mysteries that lie beneath the surface, reminding us that even when justice is served, the why can remain a haunting echo, the echoes of a tragedy, unpacking the psychology and societal impact. The tragic death of Skylar Neese is more than just a timeline of events. It's a deeply unsettling study of teenage psychology, the hidden currents of social dynamics, and the critical lessons learned within the justice system. This case, born from a seemingly innocuous friendship, exposes profound truths about human behavior betrayal and the lingering questions that even a conviction can't fully answer. It forces us to confront the uncomfortable realities of hidden malevolence and the societal pressures that can twist young lives, the twisted mindset, psychological profiles of the perpetrators. At the core of this tragedy lie the complex and disturbing psychological profiles of Sheila Eddy and Rachel Schoaf. Their actions, particularly the months-long planning and the brutal execution of their friend, defy easy explanation and challenge our understanding of adolescent development. Sheila Eddy emerges as the more chilling figure, exhibiting traits that strongly align with what mental health professionals might describe as antisocial personality disorder, or even elements of psychopathy. Her capacity for prolonged, calculated deception is astounding. She actively participated in the search for Skylar, consoled Skylar's grieving parents, and maintained an unnervingly composed demeanor throughout police interrogations. Sheila's ability to lie without apparent emotional distress, to project a facade of innocence and sorrow while knowing she was the killer, speaks to a severe lack of empathy and remorse. This isn't just about being a good liar. It's about a fundamental disconnect from the emotional pain of others and the moral weight of her actions. Her almost performative grief, including crying with Mary Neese, suggests a manipulative individual who understood precisely how to play a role to deflect suspicion. This level of cold calculation, especially in a teenager, is deeply unsettling and challenges our understanding of adolescent psychology. It forces us to ask, was this a learned behavior, a manifestation of deeper pathology that was present from a young age, or a desperate act to protect a secret at all costs, ultimately warping her sense of reality? The chilling banality of evil seems almost applicable here, where such horrific acts were seemingly carried out with disturbing normalcy. Rachel Schoaf's psychological journey, while equally culpable, presents a different trajectory that offers a glimmer of a more typical human response to profound guilt. Initially described as spunky and a little rebellious, Rachel ultimately cracked under the immense psychological pressure of her complicity. Unlike Sheila's unwavering facade, Rachel exhibited clear signs of distress, leading to a severe mental breakdown and hospitalization. Her eventual confession though self-serving in its initial downplaying of her own role, marked a significant shift. She expressed remorse in court, a stark contrast to Shelia's seemingly defiant demeanor. This suggests that while Rachel was an active participant in the planning and execution, she likely possessed a greater capacity for guilt and empathy than Shelia. Her confession in a twisted way offered a glimpse of humanity, a recognition of the monstrous act they had committed, even if her stated motive remained vague. The dynamic between them, Shelia as the seemingly dominant cold planner, and Rachel as the more susceptible, eventually breaking accomplice, is a critical area for psychological analysis. Was Rachel coerced, simply drawn into Shelia's dark orbit by a complex mix of desire, fear, and shared secrets? Or was there a pathological codependency, a shared delusion, a form of folie à deux that enabled their heinous plan to gestate and grow, with each reinforcing the other's distorted reality? The difficulty in rehabilitating young offenders with such deep-seated psychological issues remains a profound challenge for the justice system and society at large. The silent pressure, cooker, social dynamics, and the weight of secrets. The social environment in which Skylar, Shelia, and Rachel operated played a significant, if insidious, role in this tragedy. Teen friendships are inherently complex, often defined by intense loyalties, fierce jealousies, and the constant navigation of intricate social hierarchies. In this case, the dynamic shifted dramatically when Shelia and Rachel developed a secret, intimate relationship. Skylar, the perceived third wheel, inadvertently became an inconvenient witness. Her journal entries detailing their private encounters and the alleged selfie that captured Shelia and Rachel kissing transformed her from a beloved friend into a liability. The fear of exposure, particularly for Rachel, whose family was deeply religious and held conservative views regarding LGBTQ+ relationships, became an overwhelming, terrifying pressure. In a tight-knit community where such a revelation could lead to social ostracization, familial disapproval, and even perceived moral condemnation, the stakes for Rachel were incredibly high. This intense fear of social repercussions, amplified by the perceived threat of Skylar revealing their secret, may have created a distorted reality where murder seemed like the only viable solution to protect their fragile, forbidden world. It's a tragic paradox. The very fear of social judgment leading to an act of unimaginable horror. This aspect highlights a broader societal issue: the immense pressure on young individuals to conform to hide aspects of their identity and the devastating consequences that can arise when those secrets feel too dangerous to reveal. It's a sobering reminder that intolerance or judgment, even unspoken, can create an environment where desperate measures are taken to maintain a facade. The fact that their official motive was a simple, "we didn't like her anymore," is a testament to their unwillingness or inability to articulate the true underlying fear and social pressure that drove them to such an extreme act. Furthermore, the role of social media, particularly Twitter, in this narrative is compelling. It served not just as a platform for communication, but as a stage for outward performance of grief versus inner malevolence, and how it complicates perception in the digital age, blurring the lines between reality and curated image. This complicates how we discern truth from fiction in online interactions and highlights the potential for a performative aspect of crime. Failures and lessons, the justice system's initial stumble, the initial handling of Skylar Neese's disappearance by law enforcement stands as a critical point of analysis, highlighting systemic flaws and ultimately leading to vital reforms. When Skylar was first reported missing, authorities, influenced by the grainy surveillance footage showing her willingly entering a car, and Shelia's fabricated story, quickly categorized her as a runaway. This seemingly minor classification had devastating consequences, crucially because she was deemed a runaway and not an abduction victim. An Amber Alert was never issued. The Amber Alert system is designed to rapidly disseminate information about missing children believed to be in danger, leveraging public awareness to aid in searches. The rigid criteria, while designed to prevent misuse, proved tragically inflexible. In Skylar's case, the delay in recognizing foul play, coupled with the police's initial advice to Skylar's parents, "Don't worry, she'll come back," allowed the perpetrators crucial time to solidify their alibi and for the trail to grow cold. This misjudgment prolonged the Neese family's agony, forcing them into a desperate, solitary search, and significantly complicated the eventual investigation, the eventual resolution of the case, largely thanks to Rachel Schoaf's confession, driven by overwhelming guilt, served as a painful but necessary wake-up call for the state of West Virginia and beyond. Skylar's parents, particularly Dave Neese, became tireless advocates for change, transforming their unbearable grief into powerful action. Their relentless efforts led to the passage of Skylar's Law in West Virginia. This landmark legislation mandates that an Amber Alert must be issued for any missing child, regardless of whether there is immediate evidence of abduction or foul play. It recognizes that any child who is unaccounted for is potentially in danger and warrants immediate public attention. Skylar's Law stands as a powerful legacy, a testament to her tragic death, being a catalyst for protecting other children. It not only strengthened state protocols, but also influenced discussions nationally about the philosophical implications of the state's responsibility to minors and the need for more flexible, victim-centered approaches in missing persons cases, preventing other families from enduring the same agonizing delay. The legal outcome, particularly the plea deals, also sparked considerable debate and profound pain. Rachel Schoaf received a sentence of 30 years with parole eligibility after 10 years, while Shelia Eddy received a life sentence with parole eligibility after 15 years. The perceived disparity, especially for Rachel's role, was met with fierce opposition from the Neese family. Dave Neese, in particular, called Rachel a vicious monster and expressed profound doubt that her confession was genuine remorse rather than a strategic move for a lighter sentence. This highlights the complexities and perceived injustices within the justice system, where legal strategies and cooperation can lead to outcomes that do not always align with a victim's family's sense of proportional justice, leaving lingering questions about fairness and accountability. The profound emotional cost of these legal outcomes on the victims' families is a critical, often overlooked aspect of the justice process. The lingering shadow of deception and the quest for understanding. The Skylar Neese case is a stark reminder that evil often wears a familiar face. It fundamentally challenges our trust in those we deem closest to us and forces us to confront uncomfortable truths about the potential for darkness within seemingly ordinary individuals. The depth of Shelia's deception, the chilling premeditation, and the disturbing why that remains vague leave a lasting impact on all who encounter this story. The communal trauma for Star City, a small town where such horror originated from within its own youth, was immense, shattering a sense of innocence and security. This case invites us to reflect on broader societal issues. How do we foster environments where young people feel safe enough to be themselves, reducing the immense pressure to keep secrets that could lead to such desperate acts? How do we as parents, educators, and community members better educate ourselves on the subtle signs of toxic manipulation and the true nature of abuse, even within seemingly innocent peer relationships? Furthermore, it prompts us to examine the pervasive influence of social dynamics and conformity in adolescence, and how they can, in extreme cases, contribute to such profound moral compromise. And most importantly, how do we honor the memory of victims like Skylar, not just by seeking justice for their individual cases, but by learning from the tragedy to strengthen our systems, deepen our understanding of human behavior, and ultimately prevent future ones? The story of Skylar Neese is a call to vigilance, a plea for empathy, and a haunting question mark against the backdrop of seemingly innocent friendships, urging us to look beyond the surface of what we see. The Unending Echoes, a legacy of questions. The chilling story of Skylar Neese is a profound tragedy that continues to resonate far beyond the confines of West Virginia. It's a stark, painful reminder that sometimes the most profound betrayals come not from strangers, but from those we hold closest. Skylar's case isn't just about a murder. It's a crucible where the complexities of teenage psychology, the crushing weight of secrets, and the sometimes stumbling path of justice were laid bare for all to see. We're left to grapple with the terrifying ambiguity of the killer's motives. Rachel and Shelia claimed they simply didn't like her anymore, an explanation so chillingly inadequate it leaves a gaping void. How could such a trivial sentiment fuel a 9-month-long plot culminating in such brutal violence? The true why likely remains buried deep within their minds, intertwined with the desperate fear of their secret relationship being exposed. This chilling disconnect between the presented motive and the monstrous crime forces us to confront uncomfortable questions about the nature of evil in seemingly ordinary individuals. Was it a complete absence of empathy, a narcissistic disregard for life, or a profound misplaced terror that distorted their moral compass entirely? This fundamental question continues to haunt even with justice served. Shelia Eddy's chilling composure throughout the investigation, her calculated charade of grief, and her unsettling lack of remorse paint a disturbing portrait. Her ability to operate with such cold detachment Comforting Skylar's parents while knowing she was their daughter's killer speaks volumes about a fractured psyche. It challenges our understanding of human empathy and reminds us that outward appearances can be profoundly deceiving. What kind of person can weep on a victim's bed, offer false condolences, and then return to their life with seemingly no moral burden? Her almost pathological calmness forces us to look closer at the subtle, often unseen signs of dangerous psychological traits in those around us. Then there's the insidious power of secrets within a tightly knit social circle. Skylar's awareness of Sheila and Rachel's intimate relationship, documented in her journal and potentially captured in a photograph, became a perceived threat of catastrophic proportions. For Rachel, from a deeply religious family, exposure could have meant social ruin and familial condemnation. This intense pressure, this suffocating fear of judgment, can twist minds and justify unspeakable acts. It's a tragic commentary on how societal norms, particularly those that stigmatize certain relationships, can inadvertently fuel desperate and violent measures to maintain a facade. This aspect of the case forces us to reflect on the environments we create for our youth and the unseen burdens they carry, sometimes to deadly ends. The case also serves as a crucial, albeit painful, lesson for our justice system. The initial misclassification of Skylar as a runaway, leading to the devastating delay in issuing an Amber Alert, highlights a critical oversight. It's a reminder that every missing child case deserves immediate, thorough investigation, irrespective of preliminary assumptions. From Skylar's tragedy, however, came Skylar's Law, a vital piece of legislation that ensures no other child will be overlooked in those critical early hours. This legislative change, born from immense suffering, stands as a testament to Skylar's enduring legacy and her parents' unwavering advocacy, providing a glimmer of hope that lessons learned from the past can protect future lives. The profound sense of betrayal felt by Dave and Mary Neese, their struggle to comprehend how two girls they considered family could commit such an atrocity, is a harrowing emotional core of this story. Dave Neese's raw anguish, his disbelief that he once defended these girls to the police, underscores the shattering impact of such a deep personal betrayal. The path to true healing for them is undoubtedly a lifelong journey, fraught with the lingering pain of what was lost and the unsettling questions that remain. The Skylar Neese case is a chilling narrative of how easily darkness can infiltrate what appears to be an ordinary teenage life. It's a call for vigilance, for deeper understanding of adolescent psychology, and for greater compassion. In a world where secrets can become deadly, Skylar's light was extinguished far too soon. But her story, and the painful lessons it imparts, echoes on, reminding us to always look closer, to listen harder, and to cherish the precious, fragile bonds we forge. Her last goodbye was to those she loved. Her betrayal came from those she trusted,